I have a wonderful friend. The only problem is she's in Jersey. Anyone who lives in Jersey, is a little suspicious, but her name is Jane and she's from Jersey. And she graduated from Fordham in communications. And she has a passion for writing. She's a superb wordsmith. That's just such a talent. Jane is currently working in a business in the field of writing and composing instructions for products and businesses. She really has a passion for this. She just loves kind of neat and orderly things, and so she has a passion for writing and writing instructions for all kinds of products. However, Jane is a bit frustrated with her work because she revealed to me no one bothers to read instructions. And she goes, people don't appreciate my work and my wordsmith on instructions. And just recently, she decided to test and see if anyone out there is bothering to read instructions. So on the inside of a t-shirt tag, she wrote the usual instructions. Machine wash cold, tumble dry low. Never iron the design on the t-shirt, all those kinds of things. And then to test if anyone's reading, she continued. She said, for horrible results, take the t-shirt, tie it to the back of your car, and drive through puddles. And secondly, untie it and run it over at least 3 times, and then dry by tying it to the roof of your car rack. No one read it. No one complained. It went unnoticed, even by the companies. She tried again, this time with a pet shampoo, a natural pet shampoo from Vermont. They're the big craze now, the natural shampooing for your pets and for your dogs. And on the back of that one, she said, eliminate all escape routes in advance of shampooing your dog. Because once your dog is slippery wet, it becomes smarter and faster than you. There's truth in that. That's probably a pretty good instruction, actually. But again, no one complained. None of the businesses, nor even those who bought the product. Jane has this deep frustration that no one appreciates her work, that nobody really cares or wants to be bothered. And I dare say that many of us at times in our lives, maybe even in the midst of COVID and certainly in the midst of this political environment, many of us are probably in that same type of frustration, that nobody really appreciates either our ideas or our thoughts or our work. We get an impression that no one wants to be bothered. In today's gospel, in that parable, that story, the king, who really is the symbol for Jesus, invites guests, Jesus is really inviting the religious leaders in this parable, this gospel story, the Jewish religious leaders and his own disciples to come to the feast, to enter into the kingdom of God. That's the invitation that Jesus is giving. And this is the kingdom, and this is the reason Jesus was sent. This is his mission, to establish the reign of God. And he's throwing out this invitation. Yet the invited guests come up with all kinds of excuses. They're too busy. And I'm sure that's the reason that a lot of us don't read instructions. Time is of the essence, right? So these invited guests say, no, I can't go, I'm too busy. Others say, I'm not worthy. How many of us do that to ourselves? They're not worthy. They have nothing to show for themselves, nothing to bring, nothing to offer, they say. And others even say that, well, I have nothing to wear for this special occasion. In today's gospel parable, we hear that the invited guests even go as far as to ignore the king's invitation. This would have been unheard of in the ancient world. If a king summoned you, you went. But they ignore it. Some even harm the messenger of the king. And the reason is very subtle. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to get involved in this kingdom, in this reign of God. But here's the kicker. They realize by entering into this feast, this banquet, it's going to change them. And they rather not be changed. I know, and even in my own personal life, the idea that I have to change can be a bit threatening. And that's the heart of today's gospel parable. That the reign of God demands our attention. And it demands it right now. It's immediate. It requires something of us. Incredibly, however, the king in our story, Jesus, doesn't give many instructions of how you have to get to the kingdom or how you have to come to the banquet. He does not give any instructions. All the king says is simply come. Come to the feast just as you are. But here's the demanding part of that invitation. It's not an instruction, but be ready for that reign of God to change your very life. Allow it to change your very life. To broaden and deepen your view of the world, to include instead of excluding. That is, again, the heart of this gospel parable. Not about excluding, but including. It really goes to the subject matter, I think. I don't know if you're aware that last Sunday, our Holy Father promulgated a very important teaching encyclical of the Church called the Fraternity of the World, Friendship of the World. The document is very engaging. It goes up against nationalism, racism, that anti-immigration culture and policies, all those different threats to the very quality and essence of life. It even goes up against social media, which in many ways, in his critique in this encyclical, says, for something that's supposed to bring us together, it has been used by fanatics to tear us down. I thought that was very poignant. This document is all about including, which is the heart of today's gospel parable. This document also shows that Catholics are more than just one moral or social, Catholic social teaching issue. But we have a much broader ethic about life and the consistency of life, and that all life is threatened by this fanaticism, by nationalism, by social and economic greed, about this desire in our world to exclude people simply because they're different. That all life is threatened. The very fabric and essence of life is threatened by this nationalistic spirit that seems to be emboldened throughout the world. So this document calls us together to solve problems. And even the document goes as far as says, the only way we're going to get out of COVID-19 is if we come together. Indeed, it's that bringing together. It's living out of the challenge of the demands of the reign of God to change deep in our lives, not as individuals, but also together as a community, to forge relationships that carry out and sustain the essence and the wonder of life and the beauty of all creation. Today's gospel really is a challenge to enter into that kingdom, but it's also an invitation to clothe ourselves in this kingdom, in this reign of God, with compassion, with humility, as St. Paul says, with meekness, with patience and forgiveness. Indeed, be ready for the wedding banquet, and to clothe ourselves above all things in love, which binds us all together in harmony, in peace, in the pursuit of all that is good and holy and sacred.